The red dust of xylos swirled around the small, furred body, abandoned at the edge of the nesting grounds. Its large, luminous eyes blinked slowly, uncomprehending at the useless legs that trailed behind it. Anthony Reyes, scavenging for parts in the shadow of a colossal ore refinery, paused, wrench still in hand, and stared at the creature, recognizing the distinctive markings of an Aleni cub and the unmistakable signs of paralysis. Why would they leave it? Anthony wondered, his gaze sweeping the rust-colored plains. Aleni cubs were rarely seen alone, and never abandoned, especially one with such striking, almost luminescent fur patterns. The wind, permeated with metallic grit, whipped across the desolate landscape, a constant reminder of Xylos's true nature. A resource-stripped husk of a planet bled dry by off-world corporations. Here, survival meant scavenging, repurposing, and fighting for every scrap. His workshop, a corrugated iron shack nestled between a defunct mining rig and a towering slag heap, was a testament to that reality. Inside, salvaged tech lay scattered across workbenches, half-disassembled drones, jury-rigged power cells, and stacks of outdated schematics. A graveyard of good intentions and unrealized projects. Astra, sensing his approach, vocalized a series of wary chirps, a sound like wind chimes in a sandstorm. She scrambled backwards, dragging her useless hindquarters, disappearing further into the shadow of a discarded coolant tank. Her fur bristled, and her large eyes darted nervously, reflecting the harsh light of Xylos's twin suns. Anthony's gaze drifted down to his own leg, the metallic gleam of the cheap prosthetic barely concealed beneath his worn trousers. A phantom ache throbbed in his thigh, a constant reminder of the IED that had ended his military career. He remembered the promises of cutting-edge technology, the assurances of a seamless integration. The reality was a clunky, unreliable limb that chafed and ached with every step. Shame, hot and bitter, rose in his throat. He knelt, extending a hand slowly, palm up. "Easy, little one," he murmured, his voice rough from disuse. A closer look confirmed his suspicions. The cub's spinal cord was severed, a clean break just above the hips, a birth defect likely. Natural recovery was impossible. Without help, it wouldn't last a week. The Xylos plains were teeming with predators, razorwings, sandstalkers, and worse, all drawn to the scent of weakness. Even the elements were a threat, the scorching heat of day, the sub-zero temperatures of night. "I can't," he muttered, turning away. "I don't have the resources. I barely keep myself alive out here." Building prosthetics for an alien species. Impossible. He lacked the tools, the materials, the knowledge. But then he heard it, a soft, pleading vocalization, a sound that resonated deep within him, a raw, desperate plea for help. He looked back at the cub, its large eyes filled with a heartbreaking mixture of fear and resignation. It was a look he knew all too well, a look he'd seen reflected in the mirror for years after his injury. Distant howls echoed across the plains, carried on the wind. The Aleni pack. They would be back sooner or later, and when they found their cub crippled and helpless, they wouldn't offer mercy. A barely visible mining corporation security drone, its red lights blinking ominously, patrolled the perimeter of the junkyard, a silent enforcer of corporate law. Attracting their attention was the last thing he needed. They'd confiscate anything of value and ask no questions. He stared at the cub, then at his own leg, then back at the vast, unforgiving landscape. Could he really turn his back on this creature? Could he condemn it to a slow, agonizing death? Or could he overcome his cynicism, his limitations, and find a way to help? Could he fix her legs, or would they both be put into danger? Fix her legs, or would they both be put into danger? He exhaled, the stale air of the workshop doing little to calm his racing thoughts. "All right," he said, the word feeling heavier than the metal scraps he usually hauled. He turned to Astra, who tilted her head, her large eyes reflecting the dim light. "I'll try, but no promises. This is going to be difficult, and if it gets too dangerous or if I can't do it, that's it. Understand. Astra chirped softly, a sound that might have been agreement or simply an acknowledgement. He couldn't be sure. Anthony surveyed his workshop, a chaotic symphony of discarded technology, exoskeletal components stripped bare and waiting for a new purpose, power cells cannibalized from mining equipment leaking faint traces of energy, a tangle of wires, sensors, and half-finished projects, all bathed in the red-tinged light filtering through the grimy windows. It was a graveyard of good intentions, a testament to his failures, but within that mess there was potential. He needed more. "Stay here," he grunted, grabbing his worn scavenging pack. "I need parts." The junkyard on the outskirts of the settlement was a treacherous landscape of twisted metal and broken dreams. Unstable structures groaned under the weight of the Xylo's wind. Jagged edges threatened to slice through unprotected skin. And then there were the scavengers, not just humans, but also the razor-clawed Krell, territorial and hungry. He kept his pulse rifle close, the familiar weight a small comfort. The red dust swirled around his boots, coating everything in a fine, gritty layer. As he pried a power regulator from a downed mining drone, a sharp pain shot through his phantom limb. He cursed, leaning against the drone for support. Damn leg. It always acted up in the cold or when the atmospheric pressure shifted. He closed his eyes and a flash of memory assaulted him. The searing heat of plasma fire, the metallic tang of blood, the agonizing realization that his leg was gone. Repinfused with this inadequate imitation. He pushed the memory down, focusing on the task at hand. He had to find something better for her, something that actually worked. Astra watched him from the doorway of the workshop, her head cocked, her ears twitching. He wasn't sure how much she understood, but he could feel her gaze on him, a silent question. She chirped again, a soft, questioning sound. He needed to focus. Back in the workshop, Anthony picked up a basic exoskeleton joint. It was designed for human-sized machinery, far too rigid and powerful for Astra's delicate frame. As he tentatively fitted it to her leg, she flinched, a low growl rumbling in her chest. He stopped immediately. "Too much, huh?" "Yeah, I figured." Human tech wasn't going to cut it. He tried attaching a sensor to what he thought might be a nerve cluster, but Astra recoiled, vocalizing distress. He pulled back, frustrated. He didn't even know how Eleni's sensory systems worked. He was flying blind. Then Astra nudged his hand with her snout, then turned and looked towards a far corner of the workshop. She emitted a series of rapid clicks and whistles, focusing on a seemingly empty space. "What is it?" he asked, though he knew she couldn't understand him. She repeated the clicks, then nudged him again, urging him forward. Hesitantly, he followed her gaze, running his hand along the wall. Nothing. Then a faint tingle ran up his arm. He ripped away a section of corrugated metal, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, nestled in a protective casing, were several small, crystalline structures, rare earth minerals used in advanced power cells. He stared at Astra, astonished. You sense these? How?" She chirped again, as if answering. He ran a diagnostic on one of the power cells. It was almost depleted, but the core was intact. He could modify it, create a smaller, more efficient energy source specifically for the leg. It was a long shot, but it was better than nothing. Hours blurred into a frenzy of activity. Anthony hunched over his workbench, soldering, cutting, and splicing. He modified the power cell, reducing its size and increasing its efficiency. He designed a rudimentary control system, attempting to translate Astra's movements into commands for the mechanical leg. He scavenged scraps of metal, shaping them into a basic prosthetic. The biggest challenge was the joint. It had to be strong enough to support her weight, flexible enough to allow for natural movement. He tried different configurations, but nothing seemed to work. The metal was too rigid, the movements too jerky. Finally, he pieced together a prototype. It was crude, cobbled together from mismatched parts, but it was the best he could do with what he had. He looked at Astra, his face etched with exhaustion. "Ready to try this?" She tilted her head, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and apprehension. He carefully attached the leg to her stump. It clicked into place, but the connection felt unstable. As Astra shifted her weight, the leg buckled, collapsing under her. She cried out, a sound of frustration and disappointment. He swore under his breath, kicking a loose piece of metal across the floor. Damn it, I knew it wouldn't work. Astra nudged his hand again, then focused her attention on the point where the leg connected to the support strut. She emitted a series of clicks and whistles, her snout twitching. What is it? You see something? She nudged his hand towards the strut, then tilted her head as if indicating a slight shift in alignment. He hesitated, then adjusted the strut according to her feedback. The connection felt sturdier. He ran a diagnostic, reinforcing the structure based on her input. From the distance, carried on the Xylo's wind, came a series of drawn-out howls, closer than before. A shiver ran down Anthony's spine. They were coming. He tightened the last bolt, then looked at Astra. All right, let's see if this works. He helped her to her feet. The leg wobbled, unstable, but it held. Astra took a tentative step, then another. She stumbled, her eyes wide with concentration, but she didn't fall. Anthony held her steady, his hand on her back. Slowly, haltingly, she took another step and another. She was walking. Anthony made a few final adjustments, tweaking the control system, tightening a bolt here and there. Astra took several confident steps across the workshop floor, her tail swishing back and forth. He stepped back, watching her, a smile spreading across his face. She was doing it. She was actually walking. Astra turned to him, her eyes shining with triumph. She chirped, a sound of pure joy. In that moment, standing in the middle of his cluttered workshop, bathed in the red light of Xylos, Anthony felt a flicker of something he hadn't felt in a long time, hope. He looked at Astra, her mechanical leg gleaming in the dim light, and he knew that their work had only just begun. He could do more. He had to. The leg's whirred, a high-pitched whine that vibrated through Astra's newly constructed metal frame. A thrill, sharp and unfamiliar, shot through her as she took a tentative step. Then another. I'm walking. She chirped, her voice a mix of elation and surprise, but the joy was fleeting. After a few wobbly steps, the left leg buckled, sending her sprawling onto the red dust. They don't move how I want them to, she grumbled, frustration lacing her voice. They are clumsy. Anthony, wiping grease from his brow, knelt beside her. All right, let's see what's going on. He ran a diagnostic scan with a handheld device, the screen displaying a flurry of technical readouts. Joint articulation is off and the control system is too rigid. Needs more finesse. He tapped a wrench against his chin, muttering, gotta loosen her up. Astra, her large eyes focused intently on the leg's frame, reached out a hesitant paw. Here, she said, her voice surprisingly firm. The metal, it strains here. She pointed to a specific point on the leg's frame near the knee joint. And here, the vibrations are wrong. Anthony, initially skeptical, examined the spots she indicated. He ran his hand along the metal, feeling for any imperfections. He found none, at least not with his human senses. I don't see anything, Astra. I feel it, she insisted. The metal, it will break. Trusting her instincts, Anthony rummaged through his scrap pile, emerging with a sheet of scavenged Durasteel plating. He carefully cut and welded the plating onto the leg's frame, reinforcing the areas Astra had identified. Sparks flew, illuminating his determined face. Next, he turned his attention to the control system. He rewired circuits, adjusted the sensitivity of the sensors, and incorporated Astra's feedback into the programming. Think of it like learning a new language, he explained, his voice patient. Your brain sends the signals and the legs have to understand what you're trying to say. Days blurred into nights as they worked, a symphony of clanking metal, whirring servos, and Astra's increasingly confident vocalizations filling the workshop. One morning, Astra approached Anthony, carrying a small bundle of iridescent purple crystals. For you, she said, offering the crystals. Anthony raised an eyebrow. What are these? Power crystals, Astra explained. I sense, energy within them stronger than the ones you use. Anthony examined the crystals, his eyes widening. These are incredible. Where did you find them? Hidden, she said simply. I feel the energy flow in the ground. It led me to them. As Anthony worked on the power cell, Astra perched beside him, her senses guiding his every move. More this way, she'd say, the flow. It wants to go there. Following her guidance, Anthony modified the power cell, increasing its output and extending the leg's operational life significantly. With the improved legs, Astra began to experiment with different gaits. She watched the skittering sand crabs and the bounding spring hares that populated the Xylos landscape, mimicking their movements. She discovered that by adopting a more fluid, ground-hugging gait, she could move much faster and more efficiently. Anthony, observing her movements, made further adjustments to the leg's design, streamlining the frame and increasing its range of motion. The legs became an extension of her will, responding to her every thought and impulse. One afternoon, while scavenging for materials in a particularly desolate region, Astra stopped abruptly. There, she said, pointing towards a large rock formation. Something, old something, Eleni. They approached the formation cautiously, finding the crumbling remains of a structure built from a dark, obsidian-like material. It was unlike anything Anthony had ever seen, a stark contrast to the utilitarian mining facilities that dotted the landscape. This was something ancient, something lost. Astra moved closer, her head tilted, her senses working overtime. Here, she chirped, touching a seemingly blank section of the wall. Energy. It flows behind this. Following her lead, Anthony examined the wall, finding a barely perceptible seam. Astra focused her attention on the seam, and a section of the wall slid open, revealing a hidden chamber. Inside, the chamber was filled with strange devices, their surfaces covered in intricate carvings. Wires snaked across the floor, connecting the devices to a central console. The air hummed with a low, resonant frequency. Anthony approached the console, his fingers itching to touch the alien technology. He pressed a button and the console flickered to life, displaying a series of glyphs that were completely incomprehensible. Well, this is above my pay grade, he muttered, scratching his head. Suddenly, a guttural growl echoed through the chamber. Before they could react, several figures emerged from the shadows, their eyes glinting in the dim light. Scavengers. Creatures that hunt for valuable metals and tech, willing to kill for their prize. Astra reacted instantly, her mechanical legs propelling her forward. She managed to evade the scavengers' initial attack, but Anthony wasn't so lucky. One of the scavengers grabbed him, pinning his arms behind his back. Let him go. Astra shrieked, her voice filled with rage. She lunged at the scavenger, holding Anthony, her mechanical legs delivering a powerful kick to his chest. The scavenger stumbled backward, releasing Anthony. Together, Anthony and Astra fought off the remaining scavengers, their teamwork honed by weeks of working together. Anthony used his knowledge of mechanics to disable their weapons, while Astra used her agility and strength to deliver swift, decisive blows. As the last scavenger fell, a distant howl echoed through the air, closer than ever before. Anthony and Astra exchanged a nervous glance. They knew what that meant. The Eleni pack was coming. Then, the ground began to tremble. A mining corporation security patrol rumbled into view, their armored vehicles kicking up clouds of red dust. They had been drawn by the sounds of the conflict, hoping to scavenge any valuable resources that might be left behind. The Eleni pack emerged from the rocks, led by a massive, scarred alpha, his eyes burning with predatory intensity. The mining corporation security forces, clad in heavy armor, leveled their weapons. A three-way standoff. Anthony and Astra were caught in the middle, trapped between the Eleni pack and the mining corporation. The Alpha Eleni stepped forward, his gaze fixed on Astra. "Prove yourself," he growled, his voice a deep rumble. "Show us your strength. Show us you are worthy to be Eleni." The mining corporation security commander, a burly man with a cybernetic eye, surveyed the scene with a cold, calculating gaze. His eyes lingered on Astra's mechanical legs. "Alien tech," he muttered. "Worth a fortune." Suddenly, shots rang out. The Aleni and Mining Corporation forces opened fire, the air filled with the whine of energy weapons and the roar of explosions. Anthony and Astra saw their chance. They could escape in the chaos. But as they turned to flee, the Alpha Aleni stepped directly into their path, his massive form blocking their way. He looked down at Astra, his eyes filled with a strange mixture of curiosity and something else, something that looked almost like thought. The Aleni Alpha, a scarred veteran whose fur was the color of storm clouds, observed Astra with eyes like chips of obsidian. He emitted a low, guttural rumble, a sound that vibrated through Anthony's bones, then abruptly raised a clawed hand, signaling his pack to cease their attack. The massive Aleni warriors, muscles coiled and teeth bared only moments before, stilled, their predatory intensity now focused solely on Astra. "Surrender the alien and the technology, Rays," boomed Commander Stone, his voice amplified by his helmet's Vox caster. The Mining Corporation commander stood before a hulking transport vehicle, its heavy cannons trained on Anthony and Astra. "That tech belongs to the corporation now. You are interfering with corporate interests." Anthony spat on the red dust. "You want it? Come and get it." He reached into his scavenged pack, pulling out a device cobbled together from mining equipment and scrap metal. With a flick of a switch, the air crackled, and a wave of electromagnetic energy pulsed outwards. The Mining Corporation's vehicles sputtered, their engines dying, weapons systems flickering offline. The Aleni warriors, unaffected by the EMP, watched with predatory interest. "Run, Astra!" Anthony yelled, grabbing her hand and pulling her towards the labyrinthine network of canyons that scarred the Xylos landscape. The Aleni pack, surprisingly, did not immediately attack but shadowed them at a distance. Stone roared in frustration, ordering his troops to pursue on foot, their heavy boots crunching on the loose shale. Astra, her mechanical legs whirring, kept pace with Anthony, her large, luminous eyes scanning the canyon walls. "There," she chirped, pointing with a delicate claw towards a seemingly solid rock face. "A passage, hidden." Anthony, trusting her enhanced senses, ran towards the indicated spot. He ran his hand along the cool stone, feeling for a seam, a crack, anything. Then his fingers found purchase on a barely perceptible indentation. He pressed, and a section of the wall slid inward, revealing a dark, narrow tunnel. They squeezed through, the passage sealing behind them with a soft hiss. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber, its scale dwarfing anything Anthony had seen on Xylos. In the center of the chamber, a holographic projector hummed with ancient energy, casting images of a gleaming, impossibly advanced Aleni city onto the surrounding walls. Buildings soared into the sky, vehicles zipped through the air, and the Aleni themselves moved with a grace and purpose that seemed utterly alien compared to the nomadic pack he'd encountered. Anthony stared, awestruck. What is this place?" Astra tilted her head, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the holographic light. "Our past, before the decline." Anthony noticed symbols etched into the base of the projector, intricate patterns that resonated with a strange familiarity. He glanced down at Astra's mechanical legs, and a jolt of realization shot through him. The same symbols were etched into the metal, almost hidden amidst the grime. These legs, they're connected to this, to all of this. A deafening crash echoed through the chamber as the rock wall exploded inward. Commander Stone strode through the debris, his weapon raised, his face contorted with rage. "That's far enough, Rays. I want that tech, and I want it now." He unleashed a volley of plasma fire, the searing bolts tearing through the holographic city, shattering the projector and sending sparks flying. Astra cried out as a stray bolt struck her leg, sending a surge of pain through her nervous system. Instinctively, she threw out her hand, and a shimmering energy field erupted around her, deflecting the remaining plasma blasts. The field pulsed with a strange resonance, disabling Stone's weapon and throwing him to the ground. But the effort took its toll. Astra collapsed, her mechanical legs twitching erratically. Astra, Anthony rushed to her side, examining the damage. The energy field had overloaded her systems, burning out several circuits. Damn it! He frantically began trying to repair the damage. It resonates, Astra gasped, her voice weak. The energy with me. A shadow fell across them. The Alini Alpha stood at the edge of the chamber, his eyes narrowed, his gaze fixed on Astra. He had tracked them through the canyons, drawn by the surge of energy. He rumbled, a deep, resonant sound that seemed to vibrate the very air. The Ancient Ones. They chose you, the Alpha said, his voice surprisingly clear. You are connected to our past. The mining corporation cannot have this technology. We will form an alliance. For now. Anthony looked up, surprised. An alliance with you? Necessity dictates strange partnerships, human, the Alpha replied, his gaze never leaving Astra. The corporation seeks to exploit what we have lost. We will not allow it. For the next few hours, Anthony, Astra, and the Alini pack worked together, transforming the canyons into a deadly maze. They set traps, created diversions, and used the terrain to their advantage. Astra, despite her injured leg, used her sensory abilities to predict the mining corporation's movements, guiding the Alini warriors to strategic ambush points. Anthony, meanwhile, worked feverishly on a more permanent solution. He modified a mining laser, scavenging parts from the damaged projector, turning it into a focused energy weapon capable of disabling the mining corporation's heavy machinery. But it needed a power source, a source he didn't have. There, Astra said, guiding him to a hidden vein of crystals embedded in the canyon walls. These. They conduct energy like the Ancient Ones used. As Anthony worked, carefully calibrating the energy weapon, he felt a wave of exhaustion wash over him. He leaned against a rock, his hand trembling. Astra nudged him gently with her head. You are weary, Anthony. He sighed. I don't want to fail you, Astra. I've failed before. I lost my leg because I wasn't fast enough, wasn't strong enough. I don't want to let you down. Astra looked at him, her large eyes filled with understanding. I too fear failure, my pack. They abandoned me because they saw weakness. I want to prove to them that I am worthy, that I am not a burden. Their shared vulnerability hung in the air, a silent acknowledgement of their mutual struggles. Suddenly, Astra's ears perked up, her body tensing. A machine, small, approaching. It emits a strong electromagnetic signature. A drone, Anthony realized, his hand instinctively reaching for the energy weapon. Stones bypassing the traps. It is heading for the narrow passage. The one leading to the chamber, Astra said. We must stop it. Anthony nodded, a plan forming in his mind. We lure it into the tightest part of the canyon. Then we bring the roof down. With Astra guiding him, Anthony moved swiftly through the canyons, setting up the final trap. He positioned the energy weapon, carefully aiming it at a precarious rock formation above the narrow passage. The drone, a sleek, heavily armed machine, buzzed into view, its sensors scanning the terrain. Astra, using her abilities, masked their presence, creating a blind spot in the drone's sensors. Now, Astra cried. Anthony fired the energy weapon. A beam of pure energy lanced out, striking the drone and sending it spiraling out of control. It crashed into the rock formation, triggering a massive rockslide that sealed off the canyon passage. But the weapon overloaded, sending a jolt of energy back through Anthony, throwing him to the ground. He groaned, clutching his chest. The Alini Alpha observed the scene, then turned to his pack. He emitted a series of sharp barks, and the Alini warriors, without a word, turned and disappeared into the canyons. Anthony watched them go, a sense of unease settling over him. He looked at Astra, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and uncertainty. They are gone, Astra said softly. They leave the choice to me. The mining corporation would be back, he knew it. And Astra had a choice to make: rejoin the pack that abandoned her or stand with the human who gave her a second chance. Astra's luminous eyes, wide with a newfound understanding, met Anthony's. I must stay, Anthony. There is something here, something I feel connected to, something to do with the legs. She glanced down at the intricate metal limbs, a blend of Eleni ingenuity and human resourcefulness. I need to know more. The Eleni Alpha, his massive frame silhouetted against the twin suns, remained silent for a long moment, then gave a curt nod. As you wish, cub, but do not expect the pack to wait. He turned and lumbered away, his pack following with a chorus of mournful howls that echoed across the red plains. Light years away, on a sterile, chrome-plated command deck, a mining corporation commander addressed a holographic projection of a woman whose face was as cold and sharp as the Zalosian or they mined. Commander Rylan, I report a failure. The Eleni cub has refused extraction. The human, he interfered. The executive's eyes narrowed. Interference is unacceptable, Commander. Deploy the combat drones. I want a specialized extraction team on the ground within the hour. Retrieve the cub and the technology. Eliminate any resistance. Understood. The hologram flickered and vanished, leaving Rylan bathed in the cold blue light of the command deck, a grim satisfaction settling on his features. Back in Anthony's workshop, dust motes danced in the beam of his headlamp as he and Astra examined the damaged holographic data. The images flickered fragmented scenes of an ancient Eleni city, shimmering structures of crystal and metal that seemed to pulse with energy. It's like a map, Anthony muttered, tracing a finger across a particularly intricate diagram. But a map to what? Astra's brow furrowed, a faint tremor running through her body. I see, I feel, connections. Like roots beneath the surface, the legs. They are not just legs, they are keys. Suddenly, Astra gasped, her eyes widening, pupils dilating until they consumed the golden irises. Visions flooded her mind, towering structures humming with power, networks of energy flowing beneath the planet's surface, and a profound sense of harmony between the Eleni and Xylos itself. The images were fleeting, fragmented, but they left her breathless and trembling. The city, it's alive, and it's connected to me. From a rocky outcrop overlooking Anthony's makeshift camp, the Eleni Alpha watched, his yellow eyes narrowed in suspicion and curiosity. His pack shifted restlessly behind him, their guttural growls a counterpoint to the hum of Anthony's generator. He felt a growing unease. Something was changing, something that defied the ancient ways. The ambush came without warning. A high-pitched whine filled the air, followed by a blinding flash of light. Anthony threw himself in front of Astra, shielding her as EMP grenades detonated around them. Their equipment sputtered and died, the workshop plunging into darkness. Combat drones, sleek and menacing, descended from the sky, their weapons trained on the disoriented pair. Anthony, his ears ringing, dragged Astra towards the relative safety of the scrap piles. He felt a searing pain in his side, a stray energy blast. Run, Astra, get out of here. But it was too late. A net of shimmering energy ensnared Astra, lifting her into the air. She cried out, her voice filled with terror. Anthony lunged forward, but a stun blast slammed into his chest, throwing him backwards. He watched, helpless, as a mining corporation transport vehicle descended, its ramp extending to swallow Astra and her captors. The vehicle lifted off, disappearing into the crimson sky. Gasping for breath, Anthony staggered to his feet. His vision swam and his side throbbed with pain, but one thought burned in his mind. Astra, he had to get her back. He stumbled towards the rocky outcrop where he'd sensed the Eleni Alpha earlier. Help me, he croaked, his voice hoarse. They took her, the mining corporation. They took her. The Alpha emerged from the shadows, his expression unreadable. Why should I help you, human? She chose her path. Anthony swallowed, forcing himself to meet the Alpha's gaze. Because those legs, That technology, it's not just for her, it's for this planet. They want to weaponize it to control Xylos. I can show you what I've learned, but I need your help. The Alpha considered this, his massive chest rising and falling with each breath. The mining corporation's greed was well known, their disregard for Xylos and its inhabitants a constant threat. Finally, he spoke, his voice a low rumble. "Show me, and we will see if your words are true." A temporary alliance forged in desperation and mutual distrust was born beneath the alien sky. Using a combination of Anthony's makeshift tracking devices and Astra's residual energy signature, they followed the mining corporation transport to a remote research facility nestled deep within a canyon. The facility was heavily guarded, its perimeter filled with sensors and automated turrets. Inside, the facility was a labyrinth of sterile corridors and brightly lit laboratories. In one such lab, Astra was strapped to a table, her eyes wide with fear as technicians in sterile suits examined her mechanical legs. In nearby cells, other Eleni were held captive, their bodies scarred and bruised, their spirits broken. The mining corporation was experimenting on them, attempting to replicate Astra's sensory abilities. Under the cover of darkness, Anthony and the Alpha launched their assault. Anthony, using his knowledge of the facility's layout, disabled security cameras and bypassed laser grids. The Alpha, relying on his brute strength and primal instincts, took down guards with swift, silent efficiency. Astra's sensory data, transmitted through a modified comm unit, guided them through the maze of corridors. As they neared the main research lab, Astra focused her amplified sensory abilities, reaching out to the facility's energy grid. With a surge of willpower, she disrupted the flow of power, plunging the facility into darkness and chaos. Alarms blared and red emergency lights flickered to life. In the darkness, the Eleni Alpha confronted Commander Rylan, their battle a brutal dance of claw and fist. Anthony, meanwhile, freed the Eleni prisoners, handing them makeshift weapons and urging them to fight for their freedom. In the heart of the lab, Anthony discovered the mining corporation's true plan, a massive device designed to amplify and weaponize Astra's sensory abilities, turning her into a living weapon capable of manipulating the planet's very core. Witnessing the suffering of her captured people, Astra made a desperate decision. Focusing all her energy, she overloaded the mechanical legs, channeling a massive surge of power into the device. The facility shook as the energy surged, destroying the mining corporation's weapon and disabling its defenses. But the surge also had a devastating effect on Astra. Her mechanical legs sparked and sputtered, their intricate mechanisms melting and twisting. She slumped forward unconscious. The Eleni Alpha, despite defeating Commander Rylan, was critically injured by an energy blast. As darkness closed in, he looked at Astra, a flicker of respect in his yellow eyes. "She fought like a true Eleni," he rasped before losing consciousness. Ignoring the searing pain in his side, Anthony scooped Astra into his arms, carrying her out of the collapsing facility as the remaining mining corporation forces retreated in disarray. They were stranded in the wilderness, with limited resources and Astra's mechanical legs beyond repair. The red dust swirled around them, a silent testament to their uncertain future. Anthony scavenged materials from the facility's skeletal remains, his movements efficient despite the lingering ache in his own prosthetic leg. Twisted metal became a frame, salvaged wiring, makeshift splints. He worked with a focused intensity, his brow furrowed, stabilizing Astra's damaged mechanical legs enough to provide basic support. Meanwhile, submerged in a healing torpor, Astra dreamt. Vivid images flooded her mind. Towering trees that pulsed with inner light, rivers of liquid energy coursing beneath the red soil, Eleni figures adorned with glowing glyphs, their minds intertwined with the planet itself. She saw them drawing power from Xylos, living in harmony, their very existence a symphony of shared energy. It was a time before the harshness, before the abandonment, before the struggle for survival had hardened their hearts. Anthony, tracing the remnants of the facility's power grid, stumbled upon a hidden chamber beneath the main reactor core. Within, a complex network of crystalline structures hummed with latent energy and ancient Eleni conduit, long dormant. He recognized the symbols from Astra's leg components. Driven by a hunch, he carefully connected a salvaged power cable to the conduit and then to Astra's legs charging port. As power flowed, the chamber resonated with a low hum. Suddenly, a surge of energy erupted, bathing Astra in a blinding light. Alarms blared in Anthony's ears as he scrambled to disconnect the power, but it was too late. The energy had found its way into Astra, not just into her legs, but into her mind. Astra gasped, her eyes snapping open, no longer filled with confusion but with a raw, untamed awareness. The world exploded with sensation. She felt the thrumming of the planet's core, the whisper of the wind across the canyons, the frantic scurrying of tiny creatures beneath the sand. The pain of the injured Alpha miles away, the thirst of the dying plants, all of it flooded her consciousness, a cacophony of interconnected life. She cried out, overwhelmed. "Astra, what's happening?" Anthony yelled, his voice barely audible above the roaring in her ears. He reached for her but hesitated, unsure how to help. "Too much. Too much," she gasped, her body trembling. Anthony, remembering his own struggles to adapt to his prosthetic, realized what she was going through. "Focus, Astra, breathe, find something to anchor yourself to. Think of one thing, one sensation." He knelt beside her, placing a hand gently on her fur. "Focus on my voice, just my voice." He guided her through a series of breathing exercises, his voice calm and steady. He spoke of his own pain, his own frustration, his own journey to accept his new reality. Slowly, gradually, Astra began to regain control. The cacophony subsided, replaced by a sense of interconnectedness, a profound understanding of the planet and its inhabitants. As the sun crested the horizon, casting long shadows across the red landscape, a small group of Eleni emerged from the canyons. At their head was the Alpha, still favoring his injured leg but moving with renewed purpose. They stopped short, their eyes wide with disbelief as they took in the sight before them. Astra, standing tall on her mechanical legs, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light, and the human, standing beside her, radiating an aura of quiet strength. Astra stepped forward, her voice resonating with newfound authority. "I can feel your pain, Alpha," she said, her words echoing across the plain. "I can help." She closed her eyes, focusing her energy, channeling the planet's power through her body and into the Alpha. A wave of warmth washed over him, easing the pain, knitting the broken tissues back together. He staggered, then stood tall, his eyes filled with awe. Suddenly the ground trembled. Astra's eyes snapped open, focusing on the sky. "They're coming," she said, her voice urgent. "A bombardment, they want to destroy the conduit." Anthony cursed, "The mining corporation, they wouldn't let it go. How long? Minutes. It will destroy everything." Anthony's mind raced. He looked at the conduit, at Astra, at the barren landscape stretching before them. An idea sparked in his mind, audacious and desperate. "Astra, can you control the energy from the conduit?" I think so," she said, her voice uncertain. "We can redirect the bombardment, channel it into the land. We can use their destruction to create life." It was a gamble, a desperate attempt to turn tragedy into triumph, but they had no other choice. Working with frantic speed, Anthony reconfigured the conduit, rerouting its energy flow. Astra, guided by his instructions, focused her mind, reaching out to the planet, feeling the approaching bombardment as a dark storm cloud gathering in the sky. The first explosions rocked the ground. The sky turned crimson as the orbital bombardment rained down. But instead of unleashing devastation, the energy was drawn into the conduit, channeled through Astra and released into the parched earth. The ground trembled, then cracked open. Water surged to the surface, followed by a burst of vibrant green. Plants sprouted from the barren soil, their leaves unfurling towards the sky. The landscape transformed before their eyes, blossoming into a vibrant oasis of life. The Aleni pack watched in stunned silence, their faces etched with awe. They had never seen anything like it. Astra had not only survived, she had brought life to their dying world. News of the transformation reached the corporate authorities. The mining corporation executive was swiftly arrested, charged with exceeding his authority and endangering the planet. His reign of terror was over. Anthony and Astra stood together, overlooking the revitalized landscape. The setting sun cast a golden glow on their faces, illuminating their shared triumph. The air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the sound of rushing water. "We did it," Anthony said, a smile spreading across his face. Astra nodded, her eyes shining with hope. Together, the Aleni pack approached, their faces filled with respect. The Alpha knelt before Astra, offering her